Daniel X Donuts, it's rough on rats, and perspective is everything. Welcome to the Unlimited Supply Podcast, your daily music business TLDR in your ear, powered by a strict adherence to routine, and brought to you by Nodesk, helping music, technology, and finance companies navigate the music industry. It's Friday, December 6th, 2024. I'm Lars Murray. It's Finance Friday, but before we dive into the shallow money trench, over at Music Ally, Stuart Dredge has a pretty extensive interview with an old friend, Chris Horton, UMG's SVP of New Technology. AI is going to be a rocky place for rights holders to navigate, so according to the article, UMG has a task force devoted to evaluating AI opportunities. Say what you will about major labels, two things are very true. One, they have built their businesses on the work of human artists, and that's still baked into their internal cultures, so it's a little premature to predict that they will move fast to remove those pesky artists from what has historically been a pretty lucrative equation. Two, the other truth is that they will behave in their own best interests. Regardless of where you fall with the majors, it's a good peek inside UMG's AI thinking, which is farther along than you might realize. Now let's dive into the shallow money trench where thieves and pimps run free. Well, maybe when we're talking about Daniel Ek and money, shallow is not the correct word. You can decide on those two other adjectives on your own. Music Business Worldwide has been keeping a tally of Spotify executive stock cash-outs over the course of the year, and as Spotify bumps along just under $500 a share, there's been a lot of cashing out. Ek's personal 2024 cash-out is now at about $320 million. Longtime listeners will recall that here at Unlimited Supply, we love to provide perspective, by which I mean donuts, specifically Canadian donuts, and more specifically, Tim Hortons Honey Crullers. Don't ask me why, just go back and listen to our June 7th episode. Anyway, that $320 million is roughly enough money to buy the entire Canadian population, infants to centenarians and everyone in between, somewhere in the neighborhood of 9 to 10 Tim Hortons Honey Crullers apiece. Which is probably not the best way to put that money in perspective. After all, nobody really needs a donut, as delicious as Tim Hortons Honey Crullers may be. Another way of looking at it is, based on the average grocery bill of about $1,200 a month for an American family, at $320 million, how many artists with families of four, if such a thing actually exists, would that feed for a year? Well, only about 22,000. We're not taking a stand on this, just reporting, but as they say, perspective is everything. But forget how many artists Daniel Ek could support for a year. How many could you? That's a very personal question. This being the end-of-year list season, Spotify and Amazon have rolled out their year-in-review features for listeners. Spotify Wrapped and Amazon Delivered. Over at Digital Music News, Ashley King reports that an enterprising hacker has put together a calculator app to compute how much in Spotify payments you generated for your favorite artists this year. Mind you, there are a lot of variables, too many to even mention in our short space, and I don't see where it accounts for market share, but based on a couple of test calculations in the article, comparing it to my own behavior, it wasn't a lot, less than buying a CD in the year 2000. The fact is that if you're a consumer, these are by far the best of times. If you're an artist, not so much. The one detail I will share is that my top song of the year was Jack White's Rough on Rats, and according to Jack, right from the horse's mouth, it could be worse. Artists, you can take solace in this line from the song. As bad as we got it, it sure must be rough on rats. That's quite the benchmark. As they say, perspective is everything. Oh, you say, the artist will make it up on touring. Well, maybe so. Last Friday, we reported on Laura Jane Grace's European tour economics, and they were ugly. You can go back and listen to Black Friday's Finance Friday for more on that. But the National Independent Talent Organization, that's NITO for short, the organization of agents and managers, released a report just this morning breaking down a $100 ticket and how much the artist would typically pocket. The number is $8.12 per ticket. So if you're playing 1,000 or even a 500-seater in most markets, you're probably going to be okay. Below that, it's not so NITO. Sorry, couldn't resist. A little more NITO is that the organization has a new leadership group. Congrats to Wayne Forty of Entourage Talent for becoming the new president, succeeding Jack Randall. There's a rundown over at CelebrityAccess.com. Of course, if the economics of this whole music thing doesn't work out, with enough charisma, moxie, and a ring light, you could always pivot your creativity in the direction of becoming an influencer. Over at Polestar, Oscar Arales reported on Wednesday that Live Nation had acquired the management firm Timeline, which specializes in influencers. Timeline's principal and founder is Alexis Fisher, and she's bringing Larry Rudolph, who managed Britney Spears through her heyday, along for the ride. The music industry has a lot to learn from the influencer business in terms of extracting money from the biz. Maybe with a little more of that in the future, we won't be comparing artists to rats. Support for the Unlimited Supply podcast is provided by RoyFi, which offers the lowest rates and fairest terms on advances in the industry. If you're interested in taking your career to the next level without surrendering any rights or leverage, RoyFi is your advance funding solution. And by Hangout.fm. Hangout by Turntable Labs is the new social listening platform where users connect, discover new music, and play over 100 million fully licensed songs with their friends and family. Hangout is the best place for an artist to do a listening party for a new release. If you want to contact our sponsors, feel free to hit me directly at LinkedIn or at lars@nodisc.com. If you like what you hear, don't tell me. Give us a rating and or a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, and tell a friend or three, preferably 5 times, because every new development in digital music needs to be repeated at least 5 times to sink in. To get unlimited supply every single day, follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Links are in the show notes. Hit me up at unlimitedsupplypod.com, on LinkedIn, or at lars@nodisc.com to make suggestions, to feed us tips, to feed us lunch, to call us out on our dubious assertions, and to tell us what we're missing out on. That's Finance Friday. In the words of the great philosopher Eduardo Rivadavia, don't let your short-term greed get in the way of your long-term greed. And remember, in this business, no conflict means no interest. Hope your weekend is NITO. I thought I would never live to say it, but go LA Galaxy.